1998, Roland Emmerich set out to reinvent one of cinema's most iconic monsters, Godzilla. But what made this version of Godzilla unforgettable wasn't just the scale of destruction. It was the filmmaker's obsession with mixing practical effects, animatronics, miniature work, and cutting-edge CGI in ways Hollywood had never attempted before. Almost every scene was crafted by hand. Hey everyone! Welcome back to Root Studio, where we uncover how legendary scenes were actually made. So, without wasting any second, let's get started. Let's start with one of the strangest and smartest practical setups of this movie, the Fish Mountain scene. In Godzilla, 1998, the police and scientists dump an enormous pile of fish in the middle of the city, hoping to lure the creature out. On screen, it looks messy, chaotic, and incredibly real. But the real magic lies behind the scenes, where this entire sequence was built using some of the smartest practical effects of the late 90s. When you watch the BTS footage showing dump trucks unloading piles of fish, it looks like the crew actually emptied tons of seafood onto the streets. But in reality, almost all of it was specially designed prop fish. The production used real fish only in tiny quantities because real seafood spoils fast, stinks terribly, and makes the set completely unusable within minutes. So the effects team created hundreds of latex and silicone fish, each molded to match the texture, shape, and sliminess of the real thing. To make them look freshly caught on camera, the crew coated them with glycerin and KY jelly, which gave them a glistening, wet sheen under the lights. These prop fish were incredibly lightweight, making it safe to drop them from trucks and toss them around the set without risking injuries or damaging equipment. Instead of placing fish one by one, the special effects department engineered large gang-molded latex sheets where dozens of fish were cast together on a flexible foam base. If you look closely at the BTS clips, you can see crew members lifting and draping these big U-shaped sheets over a sculpted foam pile, instantly transforming it into a convincing mound of scattered seafood. A single sheet already contained multiple fish molded together. When several sheets were layered at different angles, it created the illusion that thousands of fish had been dumped into one gigantic heap. Since the fish were attached to foam, the entire pile could be reset in minutes. If the director needed another take, the crew simply lifted the sheets, reshaped the foam, and rebuilt the mountain. No mess, no smell, no stress. This repeatability was crucial because the scene required multiple types of shots. Without the molded sheets and foam understructure, recreating the same exact pile for each angle would have taken hours. But with this setup, it took only seconds. To finish the illusion, the set decorators added artificial smoke, water sprayers, soaked ground textures, and dim, overcast lighting, making the location feel damp, gritty, and eerily real, like a city desperately preparing for something monstrous to arrive. All of these techniques come together so seamlessly that audiences assume the production literally dumped tons of real fish onto the streets. But behind the camera, it was a beautifully engineered combination of latex molds, foam structures, wet textures, and smart, practical design. For the waterfront and road destruction sequence in Godzilla, 1998, the filmmakers relied heavily on practical effects to create that chaotic, everything collapsing at once atmosphere. All those falling fish, nets, and chunks of debris you see crashing onto the street weren't just random CGI. Most of it was actually created and dropped on set using a carefully engineered system. To make the destruction look authentic, the team incorporated real fishing trawler elements, nets, and dockside materials into the scene, blending them naturally with the storyline so it truly felt like Godzilla's massive movement was real. Behind the scenes, the crew first built a huge overhead rig designed to hold a massive fishing net packed with lightweight props. Inside the net, they loaded thousands of rubber fish, strips of seaweed, foam-made metal scraps, and specially molded debris pieces. These props looked extremely realistic on camera, but were intentionally made light enough to ensure the safety of stunt drivers and actors performing below. Once the net was filled, it was lifted high above the set using cranes and suspended in position. At the exact cue from the director, the bottom release mechanism was triggered, allowing the entire load of debris to cascade downward in one dramatic drop. As the net opened, everything, fish, ropes, seaweed, and broken dock pieces, came crashing down in a controlled and predictable way. High-speed and slow-motion cameras captured the fall from multiple angles, giving the editors plenty of dynamic shots to work with. One of the biggest advantages of this practical method was repetition. The same debris drop could be reset, repositioned, and filmed again and again without creating unpredictable danger. The BTS moment where you see fish and debris being recollected into a giant net is actually the crew preparing for the next take, manually resetting all the props. This reliance on physical elements is exactly what makes the scene feel so real and messy on screen. The splashes, the dust clouds, the bounce of the rubber fish hitting the cars, the chaotic scattering of props. It all happened physically in front of the camera. Instead of relying solely on CGI, the practical debris drop gave the destruction a heavy, tactile, and gritty realism that still stands out today. The creation of Godzilla for the 1998 film was an ambitious blend of imagination, artistry, and cutting-edge visual effects for its time. Director Roland Emmerich and his team wanted a Godzilla that was not the classic, bulky, lumbering monster of earlier films, but a fast, agile, and predatory creature that could realistically terrorize New York City. Creature designer Patrick Tatopoulos began with dozens of concept sketches, exploring rough silhouettes, anatomy studies, and dynamic poses. He drew inspiration from real animals, lizards for the elongated body, raptor-like feet for agility, and a tiger-style jawline to convey primal aggression. Early sketches gave Godzilla a slightly wolf-like facial expression to suggest a natural, intelligent predator. Over multiple iterations, Tatopoulos and the team refined the sketches, ultimately creating a design that was both intimidating and believable, departing entirely from the original Toho design while keeping the essence of a monster built to inspire awe and fear. Once the sketches were finalized, the next stage was the creation of hand-sculpted maquettes. A 2-foot-tall clay model was built as a miniature 3D representation of Godzilla, with careful attention to muscles, spikes, scales, and overall proportions. The detailing on these maquettes was so precise that the VFX team could scan the textures, wrinkles, and skin patterns directly into the digital model, essentially turning the maquette into a blueprint for the final CGI creature. This approach allowed animators to understand exactly how Godzilla should look from every angle, ensuring that the digital version retained the realism and tactile quality of a physical sculpture. For the film's close-up shots, practical animatronic pieces of Godzilla were built, including the head, jaws, neck, and shoulders. These massive rigs used hydraulic cylinders and servo motors to control blinking eyes, jaw snaps, mouth movements, and subtle breathing motions. On set, actors could interact with these animatronic elements, making their reactions, such as fear or evasive movements, feel genuine. After the practical models were perfected, the next step was creating the high-detail digital Godzilla. The maquettes were scanned to form the base wireframe, onto which displacement maps, reflective skin shaders, and muscle simulations were applied. Animators initially attempted motion capture, but Godzilla's movements appeared unnatural, so they opted for hand keyframed animation. By studying real-life predators such as Komodo dragons, monitor lizards, and raptors, the team captured authentic animalistic motion, head snaps, tail swipes, and running gaits that made Godzilla feel alive and threatening. Finally, the filmmakers merged practical and digital elements using multi-layer compositing. Every shot combined physical plates, like animatronics, miniature buildings, smoke, and debris, with the digital Godzilla. In the middle of all the large-scale destruction, Godzilla delivers one of its most terrifying close-range moments, when Nick, Audrey, and their team attempt to escape in a yellow cab, only for Godzilla to suddenly clamp the entire taxi inside his massive jaws. While this scene feels brutally real on screen, it was actually created using a clever hybrid of practical effects, animatronics, miniatures, and CGI. The sequence was filmed in layers. First, the chase and escape shots were captured on real roads using an actual taxi, with cameras mounted at low angles to enhance the sense of speed and panic. Once those plates were secured, the filmmakers built a full-scale replica model of the taxi, perfectly matching the real cab in color and detail. This duplicate taxi was then mounted directly in front of a giant animatronic Godzilla mouth rig. The mouth was no simple prop. It was a massive mechanical build equipped with hydraulic systems and precision controls that allowed the jaw, teeth, and gums to move realistically. This rig enabled the crew to film Godzilla's teeth slowly closing around the taxi, crushing it with terrifying weight. Every shot where you see the cab being squeezed between Godzilla's enormous teeth was captured practically, right there on set, not CGI. Just before Godzilla bites down on the taxi, there's a powerful moment where his breath sends nearby cars flying, followed by a fiery explosion. This effect was achieved using miniature vehicle models, filmed against a green screen. These mini-cars were rigged to fly, collide, and crash in controlled ways, capturing realistic physics and debris movement. These miniature shots were then digitally merged with the live-action taxi footage, and a CG Godzilla was added to the foreground. The combination of practical miniatures and CGI gave the explosion and air displacement a convincing sense of force and scale. In the final composite, multiple layers came together: animatronic mouth footage, actor reactions, miniature crashes, smoke, debris, and CGI enhancements. Early in Godzilla, there's a striking moment when Godzilla emerges from the water and casually grabs a white fish truck in his massive jaws, crushing it as if it weighs nothing. On screen, it looks like a pure CGI shot, but behind the scenes, this moment was driven largely by practical effects. To film this sequence, the production team created a lightweight miniature version of the fish truck. This model was carefully detailed to look identical to the real vehicle, but built using lighter materials so it could safely interact with mechanical rigs. The miniature truck was positioned directly in front of Godzilla's animatronic head, which was mounted on a heavy-duty rig. The animatronic head was controlled using cables, motors, and hydraulic systems, allowing technicians to precisely move the jaws, teeth, and neck. As the cameras rolled, the crew slowly closed Godzilla's jaws around the miniature truck. This allowed the team to capture real metal crunching, glass shattering, and body deformation physically on set, not digitally. Because the destruction was happening in the real world, the lighting, reflections, and debris behaved naturally. Once these practical shots were completed, they were digitally composited with the full CG Godzilla body, seamlessly blending physical destruction with digital scale. The result is a moment that feels heavy, brutal, and completely believable, all because the filmmakers let reality do most of the work. One of the most unforgettable moments in Godzilla arrives when the story takes us deep inside Madison Square Garden, revealing a terrifying secret: a massive nest filled with Godzilla's eggs, moments away from hatching. What makes this sequence truly remarkable is that the filmmakers didn't rely on CGI alone. Instead, they built a huge, physical environment that allowed actors, creatures, and chaos to coexist on the same set. To create a claustrophobic and dangerous atmosphere, director Roland Emmerich insisted on grounding the scene in reality. The creature effects team constructed a practical nest containing nearly 200 eggs, spread across a massive set that recreated the interior of Madison Square Garden at full scale. These eggs weren't all identical. Some were static background props used to fill the frame and establish scale, while others were mechanically engineered hero eggs. These special eggs contained internal motors and breakaway shells, allowing them to shake, crack open, and split apart on camera as baby Godzillas emerged. The entire fabrication process took place in Culver City, where the creature shop operated like a factory, complete with foam ovens, paint booths, and hydraulic workstations. Because of the size and complexity of the baby Godzilla builds, the production required a fully industrial setup just to bring these creatures to life. To bring the baby Godzillas to life, the filmmakers used a hybrid performance strategy rather than relying on a single technique. In total, 7 baby Godzilla suits were built: 4 hero suits with fully mechanical heads, 3 lightweight stunt suits with limited facial movement. Each suit was designed with special leg extensions and stilt-based foot pieces, forcing performers into a 45-degree forward-leaning posture. This unnatural stance perfectly replicated the awkward, reptile-like movement of newly hatched creatures. In some behind-the-scenes shots, you'll notice crew members wearing only the massive foot pieces. This wasn't random, it was a deliberate strategy. For scenes where only lower body movement was needed, such as stepping through eggs, crushing slime, or passing dangerously close to actors, the performers wore foot and leg rigs only. These allowed the production to capture realistic footfalls, weight shifts, and slime interaction without the limitations of full suits. When the camera required partial body movement or close-up interaction, the production switched to full-body Baby Godzilla suits. These were heavy, restrictive, and physically demanding, which meant they were used sparingly. Shots involving slow movement, head turns, or looming presence were captured practically using these suits. The hero versions featured mechanical heads, operated by puppeteers controlling eye movement, jaw opening, and subtle expressions. This added emotional realism, making the creatures feel curious, aggressive, and alive. However, full suits couldn't handle fast movement, pack behavior, or large-scale attacks. For those moments when multiple Baby Godzillas run, swarm, or chase characters, the production transitioned seamlessly into CGI animation. The brilliance of this sequence lies in its balance. Practical effects delivered real shadows, slime splashes, foot impacts, and physical presence, while CGI expanded the scale, speed, and number of creatures. Every Baby Godzilla on screen is a combination of practical feet or full suits for close-ups, animatronic heads for expression, CGI bodies for movement, speed, and crowd behavior. This layered approach ensured that even the digital creatures felt grounded, because their interaction with the environment was based on real physical reference captured on set. The egg hatching sequence remains one of the best examples of late 90s hybrid filmmaking. Instead of choosing between practical effects or CGI, Godzilla merged both techniques intelligently. The result is a scene that still feels tangible, dangerous, and immersive, even decades later. This is why the Madison Square Garden nest doesn't just look like a monster set piece. It feels like a living ecosystem, breathing, hatching, and ready to overrun the city. Some of the most impressive destruction in Godzilla wasn't created inside a computer, it was built by hand. The VFX team constructed large-scale miniature models of New York City, designed specifically for Godzilla's destruction sequences. These miniatures were built at various scales, depending on the shot. Some were used for wide city passes, while others were designed for helicopter chase and attack sequences. In many scenes, the helicopters you see flying are CGI, but the moment they crash into buildings, skim rooftops, or explode on impact, the production switches to highly detailed miniature helicopters interacting with physical model sets. Entire city blocks were recreated in miniature to capture tail swipes, building collapses, facade destruction, and helicopter point-of-view shots. Now that you've seen how the creature was sculpted, animated, smashed through streets, and lured by tons of fake fish, the movie hits completely differently. And if you want to see more behind-the-scenes breakdowns like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for new video updates. Till then, keep watching.